Listen well and hold your breath for 15 seconds. Imagine a smiling bride on her wedding day in a small Nigerian town. Imagine two handsome brothers standing in the crowd, each sure that he is her only secret. Imagine drums, masquerades, and an old shrine where the ancestors still speak. Now ask yourself, when the talking mask calls the bride by two different surnames, who will she look at first? And who will she deny when the whole village turns? Keep that picture in your mind. What happened next is what I, a simple storyteller, saw with my own two eyes. And if you're just joining us, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up and turn on the notifications bell so you never miss a story like this one. I will tell you about Isioma of Umueze, a girl whose face could quiet a fight and whose smile could wake a sleeping goat. Her beauty was like evening sun on red earth, and her waist moved like palm frods dancing to a Harmattan breeze. But beauty does not fill a pot of soup, and beauty does not pay a hospital bill. Isioma lived with her mother, Mama Inedi, a widow who sold crayfish and smoked fish by the roadside near the old mango tree. The woman coughed at night, held her chest like somebody hugging a broken calabash, but she still woke up early to hustle. Their zinc roof sang whenever rain came, and the floor in the one-room house was red soil, pressed hard by many feet, many prayers, and many tears. When I say tears, I'm not talking about only water from eye. I'm talking about the heavy pain that sits in the throat like unripe plantain, because Mama Inedi needed treatment in Uweri, and the money kept running away like chickens when a hawk flies low. Isioma would count, and when she reached the end of the notes, the papers grew thin, and the money was not enough. She went to the chief's house to wash plates. She wove hair for school children. She hawked gari and granuts, and sometimes her pride. People said she was too fine to be hustling like that. People talk. They never stop. Let me introduce the brothers from the Obieze family, Obiora and Chidi. Both tall, both carrying their father's stubborn jaw, but different in heart. Obiora, the first son, came from Port Harcourt where he handled big contracts and wore shoes that sounded like English when they touched the ground. He drove a black SUV that swallowed the road and drank fuel like a rich man drinks small stout. He liked big things, big plans, big laughter, big promises. Chidi, the younger brother, stayed in Umueze teaching mathematics in the secondary school. He wore simple slippers, ironed his shirts like new sheets, and his laughter was careful, as if he did not want to disturb the peace living in his chest. If you ask me which one the women loved, I will tell you the truth. They loved the two. Some liked the shine of Obiora's city perfume. Some liked the fresh breeze around Chidi's quiet eyes. But Isioma, she loved with her whole body in two different directions. And that is how trouble entered. You want to know how it started? I will tell you. It began under the almond tree behind St. Peter's, one late evening when the sun was leaving small. Chidi was closing from school, his chalk still on his fingers. Isioma was hurrying home from the market, hiding cough medicine inside a wrapper so people would not ask, "How is Mama?" Their eyes met the way two lamps meet in a dark room, and something warm woke inside both of them. "Good evening," Chidi said, and it felt like the evening answered back. Then came greetings again, then talk, then laughter that made the paths too short. Soon it became their habit to meet there. He would bring akara, she would bring stories. He told her numbers do not lie. She told him life does not always tell the truth. One day, when the cough shook Mama's bones like a masquerade rattle, the doctor in Uweri wrote figures on paper that made Isioma's leg weak. That night, Chidi walked her home, holding the paper like it could bite him. "I will help," he said. "I will sell my motorcycle. I will use my salary. We will beg where we can beg. We will do it." She believed him because his words came from a quiet river in his heart. But when good plans are walking on the road, trouble can fly over them like a kite and land first. Out of nowhere, Obiora returned to the village. He came with gifts like rain. He gave the church new pews. He bought footballs for the boys. He gave wrappers to the women and shook hands with big men. And then he saw Isioma buying beans by the roadside, saw that her eyes were beautiful even when tired, and his heart said, "I want." He asked about her. People told him, "She's a good girl, but her mother is sick." That night, he found their house, knocked with his big city ring, and entered with a smile that could open closed windows. "I heard," he said. "Let me help." He did not use small voice. He handed Isioma a brown envelope that had the weight, the kind of weight that tells you to stop crying. Pay for your mother's treatment, he said. Let her breathe well again. The money felt like a miracle, and she accepted it like a person who has been begging for rain and suddenly hears thunder. She thanked him. Mama blessed him with words that smelled like hot soup. He left, leaving behind the perfume of a man who is used to doors opening. From that day, Obiora visited often. He saw how Isioma cleaned the compound, how she tied her wrapper, how she spoke gently to her mother. He told stories about Port Harcourt, about bridges and water, about money that liked him. He laughed, he gave, he promised, and when he promised marriage, he did it fast. Not like somebody who wants to count the whole market before buying pepper. We can do registry in Onisha this weekend, he said. Small, neat, quiet. Then I'll come back and do the big traditional later. I don't like noise. There was a kind of man who said, I will, and tomorrow became today. Isioma should have said, wait. But the pressure in her life was strong like heat in dry season. She looked at her mother sleeping without coughing for the first night in many weeks, thanks to medicine that money bought. She looked at the roof that would need repair before the rains. She looked at herself, a girl who had been strong for too long. So she agreed. Listen to me. Secrets begin like a whisper in the corner and then grow into a drum in the open square. They traveled to Onitsha. The registry woman wore glasses that made her eyes look like two moons in a black sky. Papers were signed, hands were held. A ring slid into Isioma's finger, small, neat, quiet. We will keep this between us, Obiora said. I want to surprise my family when I bring the wine for the traditional. You deserve a celebration that will swallow the sun. He kissed her forehead. She returned to Umueze with a new name folded deep inside her wrapper, like a letter she was scared to read in public. Meanwhile, Chidi did not know. He sold his motorcycle. He borrowed from a fellow teacher. He spoke to the church women. He carried hope like a load that is heavy but sweet. The day he came to the house with the envelope of contributions, he saw the small gold ring on Isioma's hand, shining like it belonged and did not belong. He felt something cold crawl across his back. You got a ring? He said, smiling with only his mouth. She closed her fingers. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to open her chest and pour everything out like palm wine, but the words stuck like fishbone. It's just my aunts, she lied softly. Lies do not grow old. They simply invite more lies to sit down. That night, rain came like drummers from another town. Chidi walked home with the envelope in his pocket, his mind a market where everyone shouted at once. He loved her, he believed in her, but the ring sang a song he could not ignore. He pushed the thought away. He told himself, love is patient. He told himself, maybe I'm reading the wrong page. Then something happened that turned everything from slow burn to hot fire. The Eke market thieves attacked the road from afar. A small bus turned over into the shallow ditch near the shrine. People shouted. Men ran with torches. In the dark, Isioma slipped, fell, and cut her ankle. Blood kissed the dust. She cried out. Chidi, who was helping lift an old woman from the bus, heard the voice and ran. He heard Isioma, tied his handkerchief around her ankle, lifted her like she weighed nothing. You will be fine, he murmured, carrying her past the shrine, past the almond tree to her house. In that moment, pain opened the door for tenderness, and tenderness opened the door for a promise. After Mama gets well, he whispered, his forehead touching hers, marry me. Let me be your safe place. Her heart broke into a yes and no at the same time. The ring on her finger felt heavy like a secret stone. Chidi, she said, voice shaking. Before she could finish, Mama coughed from inside and called her name. The moment closed like a book you are not ready to read to the end. 2 days later, a prophetess called Mama Uju came to the house in a wrapper the color of ripe palm fruit. People said she saw visions that ate truth as if it were jollof rice. People said she was the mouth of the ancient spirits around Umueze. She sat, shook her cowries, and told Isioma what she already feared. The river of your life wants two bridges. If you cross only one, the water will rise. It sounded like a puzzle. Later, when the prophetess caught Isioma alone, she pulled her aside, voice like oil on iron. If you want your mother's life to be long, she said, you must bring big sacrifices to the shrine before the new Yam Festival. Big sacrifices. Where will you get such money? From the man who has already tied you, or from his brother who has tied your heart? How did she know? Did someone talk? Or do certain people sniff secrets the way the goats sniff yam? I cannot tell you. I only know that fear is a road that leads people to strange places. The prophetess gave Isioma a list as long as a church sermon: rams, white cloth, 7 calabashes of palm wine, money, more money. If you cannot bring it, she said, your mother's cough will count her days. That night, when Obiora called from the city, showing sweet words, he mentioned the traditional marriage plans. I want it grand, he said, but timing is tight. Work is mad. Let's keep it quiet until the festival season. I will settle everything. He sent more money. He sounded like a man who believed life would bow when he spoke. The next evening, Chidi came with 3 yams, fresh pepper, and a promise in his eyes. He said, let us do a small family introduction this weekend. Not public, not loud. I don't have Port Harcourt money, but I have clean hands and a heart that can carry you. Let me go to your uncle and bow. Let me drop kola nut and say it with my chest. I want to marry Isioma. Now you see the crossroad. One brother has signed papers and rings in Onitsha and was arranging silence. Another wanted to speak humbly, quickly. And somewhere behind all the noise, the prophetess was fanning the fire with a list of sacrifices and threats pressing Isioma's mind like a stubborn headache. The decision she made, I will not judge, only narrate. She said yes to Chidi's quiet introduction. She said yes with tears because love sometimes arrives to see that fear has already rented the front room. The introduction was in the backyard by the pawpaw tree. No music, few people. Kola nut spoke. Elders nodded. Bride price was not fully paid, but they agreed to a way forward. They poured libation. They prayed. They ate jollof cooked with firewood that gave it smoke and memory, and when the old women jubilated, the sound rose and covered the smallness of the event with joy. But did I not tell you that secrets grow legs? When the moon climbed high that night, Isioma removed her ring and hid it inside a small cloth bag under her mat. She told herself that life would arrange itself. She told herself that after her mother's health stabilized, she would travel to Onitsha and rectify things with Obiora. She told herself that truth could wait a little longer without turning sour. She did not know that truth spoils faster than fresh fish in noon sun. We moved into festival season. Umueze prepares for the new Yam Festival the way a bride prepares for her wedding. The ground swept clean, the roofs mended, the drums tuned, the masquerades, the Mwamu were already practicing in the bush path behind the shrine. Children ran around with sticks pretending to be spirits. Men brought down carved masks from rafters and spoke to them softly like old friends. Women washed white wrappers in the stream till they shone. The air was thick with old stories waking up. Obiora came home 2 nights to the festival, his SUV rolling in like thunder that decided to drive. He wore crisp white and gold, the kind of agbada that makes dust give way. He hugged his father, who clapped his back like beating a talking drum. He looked for Isioma and found her, and the ring on her finger was missing. His eyes became a narrowed road. Where is your ring? He asked, smiling with the kind of smile that means the teeth are not happy. I kept it, she said, voice quiet. For safety. He nodded, face still. That night, he told her to meet him behind the whole storehouse by the shrine after moonrise. She went, heart beating like Ogene. There, Obera spoke the way a bug speaks to a worker caught sleeping. I heard whispers, he said. Are you playing me? She began to cry, the kind of crying that shakes the truth loose. She told him about Chidi. She did not mention the registry because that was the word she was too afraid to bring into the night. She said she was confused, that fear was cooking in her life and she could not cool it. He stared at her, the muzzle in his jaw dancing a stubborn dance. Then he did a thing I did not expect. He softened, like yam when it meets heat. We can still manage this, he said. The festival is coming. After it, I will do the traditional quickly. The village will know who you belong to. Then you will pack and follow me to the city. He touched her cheek like making a promise to his own hand. He walked away, leaving the hair heavy as if rain wanted to fall. But the ground under was already opening. Because the next morning, Chidi came early, wearing a shirt he had ironed 3 times. He brought a small anklet made of tiny white beads. My mother wore this when she married my father, he said. It is for luck. On the festival day, wear it for me. She took it with trembling fingers. She wanted to say everything. Her throat held the truth hostage. Thank you, she whispered. The festival day arrived like a king. The square was wearing its best clothes. The yam barns looked like proud soldiers. Women tied wrappers high. Men's red caps shone. The talking drum spoke names and praise. Palm wine flowed. The masquerades came out one by one, each with a history longer than the road to Onitsha. Children screamed, then laughed, then hid behind their mothers' wrappers. Old men smiled with a sadness only old men know. At noon, the biggest masquerade, Nna Okpoko, the voice of the ancestors, stepped out with a heavy rattle and a mask carved before my father was born. The crowd parted like the Red Sea in those Bible stories. Now, Okpoko does not just dance, sometimes it speaks, and when it speaks, people listen with their spine. The talking drum kept quiet like it, too, wanted to hear. Ina Okpoko moved in circles, the rattle saying pa pa pa. Then he stopped in front of Isioma, who wore the white anklet and a wrapper so clean it looked like a borrowed light. He bent his heavy head. The crowd hummed, and then, in a voice that did not belong to any living man, the masquerade called her name. Not just Isioma, he called her full name from childhood and then attached two different surnames, one after the other, the surname of Obiora's family and the surname of Chidi's family. Listen, when ancestors mention two names for one bride in one breath, people don't blink, they choke. The square froze. Even the palm trees held their wind. The masquerade spoke again, louder like a bell when a child shakes it too hard. Daughter of the soil, your hands hold two raffia ropes. Which one will you release? Which one will strangle you? Women covered their mouths. Men looked at one another with eyebrows raised like umbrellas. Mama Inedi began to cry a deep cry, not from cough, but from the place where a mother knows when a child has carried fire on her head. Obiora stepped forward first, his city perfume fighting with the smell of dust and yam. She is my wife, he said chest high. I signed paper. I placed a ring. I will do the big rite after the festival. The crowd gasped. People started to murmur like harmattan leaves. Chidi's face drained like cassava water. He took a step forward too, but his voice came out like smoke. I, we. His father grabbed his arms, eyes red, voice low and sharp. What we? What have you done? The talking drum found its tongue and started to beat small, small. The chief waved his staff for silence. We are not a market, he said. We are a people. Let us hear everything. The ancestors had opened the basket. They wanted to count. The truth came out like yam poured from a bag, heavy, rolling, refusing to sit still. Obiara spoke of the registry. People hissed, some in shock, some in judgment, some in jealousy that they did not hear gossip earlier. Isioma spoke, voice shaking. She told them about the cough, the medical bills, the prophetess and her list, the fear that pressed her day and night, Chidi's kindness, Obiora's help, her desperate decision to hold two ropes and pray that one would kindly let go. When she reached the part about hiding the ring, she broke. The crowd's murmur rose and fell like a wave. Then the prophetess herself walked into the square like a snake that wants the fire to dance for it. Mama Uju stood in front of the masquerade, lifting her hands so the many bracelets could sing. I only told her what the spirit said, she declared. It is the girl that brought confusion. But the old women in the village looked at one another, and I saw in their eyes the light of women who have lived long enough to smell deceit under new perfume. And Elva, thin like broomstick but with voice like thunder, pointed at Mama Uju. You, he said, have been eating where we keep sacred food. He turned to the masquerade. Let the ancestors confirm. There was a silence, heavy enough to bend knees. Then Nna Okpoko did something that made my skin forget it belongs to me. He lifted his rattle towards the prophetess, and when he spoke again, the voice that came out was a woman's voice, old and familiar. The voice of Obieze's family's late mother, the brother's mother, gone to the land of spirits 2 years before. People shouted and fell back. Some ran, some stood as if stones tied their feet. The voice said, Mama Uju, you took what was bought from my spirit and sold it in the market of fear. You carried names like baskets. You used them to fetch water for your pocket. Return what you have taken. Mama Uju shook. You know that shake of someone who finally meets the thing they pretend to control? Beads flew off her wrist. She fell to her knees. Forgive me, she cried. I was only
The elders did not let her finish. They moved her to the side, bound her with words, not rope, words that weigh more. Later, the shrine would judge her properly, but for now, the focus returns to the bunny pot, Isioma and the two brothers. The chief spoke. This matter is hot, he said. If we hold it with bare hand, it will scar us. We will use wisdom like a thick cloth. The elders gathered in a tight circle. Their red caps touched like kola nuts in a bowl. They spoke long. We waited long. The sun walked across the sky, got tired and leaned on a palm tree. At last, the chief returned, staff in hand. Because the first son carried her to sign paper in the city, he said, and because bride price has not been fully paid by the second son, and because our land cannot carry one wife, shared by brothers like a basket of mango shared by children. Both arrangements are dissolved today until further rites are done without lies. This is our word. The crowd groaned and signed. Some clapped, some shook their heads. The brothers stood like carved wood. But the case was not over. A mother's voice carried from where Mama Inedi knelt, her wrapper dusty and wet. Please, she begged, do not throw my child away like cassava peels. She made bad choices, yes, but hunger and fear pushed her. If you must punish, punish me, not her. Those words, you could taste the salt in them. Silence again. Then Nna Okpoko lowered his head towards Isioma and did something strange. He took a small step forward and, with heavy hand, touched the white beads on her ankle, the anklet from Chidi's mother, lightly, like a blessing or a warning. Then he stepped back as if the ancestors had spoken in a language only elders hear. Chidi looked at the anklet, he looked at Isioma, he looked at Obiora, and something inside him broke softly, like dry twig under careful foot. He turned to his brother and said the most unexpected words of the day. Brother, I failed you. I should have told you first when my heart began to beat for her. I thought you, the big city man, would laugh at the small teacher. I hid, and hiding is a kind of lying. Turned to Isioma. You are not an object. You are not a prize. Fear made you hold two ropes, but your hands can still choose truth. He took a deep breath that seemed to weigh as much as his whole body. I release you. Obera's jaw moved again, that pride muzzle dancing stubbornly. He wanted to argue with the elders, with the masquerade, with the sky, but his mother's voice had come from the mask, and sometimes even pride bows when the dead speak. He faced Isioma, eyes bright like glass. I forgave many things in this life, he said. This one would take time. Turned away and walked out. His agbada brushing dust that refused to shake. That evening, the festival continued, but the sweet in the soup had reduced. People danced, yes, but they also used their eyes to carry gossip home. Days passed. The Umueze compound became quiet in a heavy way. The brothers stopped greeting with their old laughter. They greeted like people who forgot how to carry the same family name easily. The elders made the prophetess return what she could return, and the shrine kept the rest for judgment. Mama Inedi became stronger, as if truth had some medicine inside it. Isioma stayed indoors a lot. People say she hid from the sun. People say she hid from her shadow. I say she was hiding from her own heart. Sometimes I saw her by the stream, washing and whispering into the water, the way a child whispers to a snail and expects an answer. One twilight, while the sky was purple like bruise, Chidi came to the small house. He stood at the door and did not enter. I am traveling to Kano, he said. My uncle found me a teaching post there. New place, new hair. His eyes did not cry, but every word left a wet mark in the air. Take care of your mother. Take care of yourself. He looked at the anklet on her ankle and nodded, like signing a farewell letter on her skin. He walked away. She watched until he turned a corner and the road hit him. Next morning, Obiera's car left for the city before the cock had time to practice. It did not stop by Isioma's house. Pride is a road without speed bumps. Time, as always, moved. Yam grew. Rain fell and stopped falling. Market days learned new gossip and forgot old ones. People started placing this old matter in the shelf where old stories sit and wait for fresh ears. Then one Harmattan night, when the moon was thin and sharp like new blade, a child started crying near the shrine. A cry like a small bell, cutting the dry air. The night watchman, Udo the hunter, followed the sound and found a bundle wrapped in white cloths and leaves, placed carefully at the foot of the sacred Iroko. He unwrapped it and saw a baby girl with wide eyes like midnight. On her tiny ankle, listen to me, on her ankle was a string of small white beads, the twin of the anklet Isioma wore. Tied to the cloth was a note, written in careful hand. A gift to the ancestors. Let truth raise what fear tried to destroy. The village woke like someone poured cold water on its head. The chief came, the elders came, the wives came, we all came. The baby did not stop watching us, calm as if she knew each of our names before we said hello. Who placed the child there? Why at the shrine? Why with that anklet? Some looked at Isioma with eyes that asked questions. She shook her head, tears standing in her eyes, her hands shaking as she reached for the child and then drew back as if fire lived in the baby's breath. The masquerade season was over. Yes, but the shrine does not sleep. The elders carried the child inside, made quiet prayers, lit palm oil lamps. In the morning, the chief stood in the square, the baby in his arms. This child, he proclaimed, belongs to truth. Until truth is properly done, the clan will care for her. The women jubilated, soft. The men nodded, slow, and a new rumor began to walk the road. That evening, a message came from Port Harcourt. Obiora had been in an accident on the east-west road, but he was saved by a young hawker who pulled him out of his smoking car. They said he woke up and the first word he said was his mother's name. The second word he said was forgive. He returned to Umueze the following week, wearing humility like a new shirt. He did not carry city arrogance in his bag this time. He went straight to the shrine, poured libation and spoke to the air the way a boy speaks to a father he finally understands. Then he went to see Isioma. She was sitting on a stool peeling cassava, the baby from the shrine sleeping near her in a borrowed raffia basket. He stood at the doorway for a long time. I'm sorry, he said at last. Not just for what happened, but for the pride I brought into it. I wanted to own you like I own contracts. People are not projects, they are people. He looked at the baby. Whose child? He asked softly. Notice that I'm not telling you anyone counted backward or forward. I'm not telling you anyone chased dates like squirrels. This is not a story of calculation. It is a story of consequences and mercy. Isioma's hand shook. She is mine, she said in a voice that belonged to every woman who ever stood between her choices and her future. She is also the ancestors until my truth is complete. Where is Chidi? He whispered. In Kano, she said, and peaceful. He looked at the anklet on the baby. He looked at the anklet on Isioma. He closed his eyes as if a wind passed through him. I will not ask the question in my throat, he said. I will ask a different one. Who do you need? What she needed was not a big wedding or a city house. What she needed was space, big enough to hold truth without breaking. He built a small extension to the house, not with pride but with apology. He sent money to the clinic, not with noise but with steadiness. He greeted people with respect, as if he had finally read the manual of being a human being. And he kept a respectful distance, like a man standing under rain who knows he cannot own the sky. Months passed. The child laughed, showed dimples that looked like somebody had poked joy in both cheeks with a finger. The village learned to smile again when they saw her. They gave her a name that meant the day truth came in her tongue. People brought small gifts, wrapper strips, tiny bangles, granules in a leaf, because babies are village's favorite excuse to be kind. Then, on the next New Yam Festival, exactly 1 year after the ancestors called two surnames in one breath, a letter arrived from Kano. It was Chidi's handwriting, the careful one that made even commas look polite. The letter asked if the elders would allow him to come home for the festival to speak one truth and carry one load. The elders said yes. The day came. The square wore new dust. Drums remembered their old songs. The masquerade came out with moderated power, like men who have learned about consequences. When the biggest mask stepped forward, the crowd held their breath. But this time, the ancestors kept quiet, as if even spirits respect when living people try to fix what they broke. Chidi stood in the center of the square, eyes clear. He looked at Isioma, at the child in her arms, at Obiora standing up to one side with his hands behind him like a boy waiting to be graded. Chidi bowed to the chief and faced the public. My people, he said, I have come to return what I held in secret and to ask for what I should have asked the first time. He turned to Isioma and knelt. I love you, he said. The words were not loud, but they were pure, like water from a clay pot. I have loved you from the day your eyes told my eyes to come home. Failed you by hiding. I failed my brother by not speaking early. I failed myself by letting fear make choices for me. Today, I ask for your hand openly, not to win, not to prove anything, to do the right thing the right way. He placed a small wrapped package on the ground. Inside was a simple band, not the same ring, not the same story. New metal, new meaning. Before Isioma could answer, Obiora stepped forward, took a deep breath, and did what no one expected. Not even the ancestors peeping from behind the mask carved eye holes. He knelt too. Yes, the big man from the city, the first son, he knelt in dust. Forgive me, he said, looking at Chidi. I held the world like a trophy. I confused possession with love. I did not protect you like an elder brother should. If you and she decide on a future, I will set aside with peace. If she chooses to walk alone, I will support from a distance. I want our house to stop being a war. I want our mother spirit to stop calling us goat heads in her sleep. The square exploded in a noise that was not laughter. I'm not crying and not singing, but all three are old enemies nod to each other. I saw women squeeze each other's hands till blood remembered it could dance. All eyes returned to Isioma. She stood there holding the child, whose anklets flashed white in the sun. And then her mouth finally opened, and truth came out like a river that had been dammed too long. I married one man with paper and panic, she said. I upsetted one man with kola nuts and kindness. I hurt two men with silence and fear. I hurt myself with secrets. Let it end here. Let the ancestors be witnesses as I choose a path that does not need cleverness to walk. She turned to the chief. Break the secret registry with the same authority that made it a shadow over my life. Refund what needs refunding. Return what needs returning. If a memory must be done to wash my feet from that road, I will do it. The chief nodded slowly, eyes soft. It will be done, he said. Truth is a broom that sweeps quietly but cleans deep. Then she looked at the brothers. I am not a prize or a punishment, she said. I am a person. What I want now is peace to raise this child and to earn back the parts of myself I traded to fear. If love will live here, let it come with patience and respect. If marriage will live here, let it come after these things. She handed the baby to her mother and did something only two people in the square understood. She removed the white ankle beads from herself and tied them around the child's wrist, gently, lovely, as if saying, You will not carry my confusion, you will carry my hope. People sighed like a wind passed through them. Some said Amen as if the church had unexpectedly entered the square. The masquerade bowed and left, the rattle whispering a blessing none of us could fully catch. You think the story ends here? You don't know Nigeria. That night, under the same almond tree where shy laughter once lived, I saw a shadow move. It was the prophetess, sneaking towards the shrine house like a cat who wants to steal from a pot. In her hand was a small calabash wrapped in black cloth, the kind people use for stubborn medicine. She thought everyone was busy sleeping up jollof and palm wine, but the ancestors do not sleep on nights like that. And I, a storyteller with long legs and small noise, do not sleep when stories are trying to run away. I followed softly. Before she could reach the shrine, someone stepped out from the darkness. Not a spirit, a man. He wore a carved half mask on his head, the kind dancers use for practice. In his left hand was a staff older than my grandfather's jokes. He spoke with a voice I knew, but could not place, low and even, like a river that knows it will meet the sea. Your work is finished, he told the prophetess. She dropped the calabash. It broke with a cry like something living inside died. Please, she begged, don't tell them. The man lifted his staff. I don't need to tell them, he said. You will. He took her by the elbow and led her towards the chief's compound. And here is the last shock, the one that will make you hold this story in your mouth for days. Morning came, and when the village gathered to hear the prophetess confess the last of her tricks, who stood beside the chief holding the old staff? Not the chief priest, not the oldest elder. It was the quiet school teacher, the one who had traveled to Kano, Chidi. He had returned early in the night and gone straight to the shrine, not to boast, not to fight, but to keep watch, because when a man says he wants to build truth, he must learn to guard the door. Chidi lifted the staff and spoke. I did not come back for promise alone. I came back because our land needs men who will stand when it is dark. He looked at Obiora in the crowd. Brother, stand with me. Obiora stepped forward without thinking, stood at his side like they were boys again chasing lizards behind their father's barn. The prophetess confessed that she had pushed fear into people's mouths so she could eat their coins. She had seen a small secret and turned it into a big market. She had danced around the shrine like someone who thinks thunder is only light. The elders banished her from Umueze till the yams grow old. The shrine was cleansed. The staff was set back where it belongs. After the judgment, in front of everybody, Chidi turned to Isioma and did not kneel this time. He only spoke one sentence that told the whole future. When you are ready, I will be here, me and my brother, beside me, because a home is not one person. It is a circle we hold together. And Obiora, the man who once tried to own the sky, nodded and added, "We will be the kind of men that make a woman safe to choose." Days later, a cart arrived from Owerri with roofing sheets, books for the school, and hidden under a sack of gari, a small carved mask, a gift for the child who slept at the shrine that Harmattan night. The mask was carved with two faces, one looking left, one looking right, and in the middle, a small mouth smiling. On the back, someone had scratched words with a nail. Truth has two eyes, but one heart. I leave you with this. In Umueze today, when the drum starts and the yam is sweet, people still point at the almo tree and the shrine and tell the story of the bride who married two brothers in secret and how the ancestors exposed it at the festival. They tell it not to laugh at her, but to remember that fear is a bad matchmaker, that love without truth is a basket carrying water, and that a village can choose mercy and still keep its laws. And if you ever pass by our square and see a little girl running around with white beads on her wrist, chasing chickens and shouting at the sun, know that some endings are not neat, they are living things. The last time I saw her, she held the staff for a second. It hummed in her small hand, and she laughed. The sound made even the palm trees lean in. Maybe that is the real ending. Not who got the ring, but how a whole village learned to carry truth together. If you ask me whether Isioma later married, I will smile and say a storyteller does not blow the flute after the dance is over. But whenever the festival comes and the big mask bows towards the place where she stands, I see two brothers, shoulder to shoulder. I see a woman standing like a tree that found water, and I hear a baby's old laughter rolling across the new yam. That, my friend, is how scandal can become a lesson, and how a quiet choice can be louder than any drum. The end. The moral lesson to this story is that tell the truth early because secrets grow bigger, hurt more people, and cost more to fix than honesty ever will. Kindly leave a comment, like, share, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.